Well, sit yourself down, take a load off, relax, unwind a little bit. After all, you've got a long voyage ahead of you, and we don't want you to necessarily be tense whilst you're doing that. Sit down, that's it, that's right. Just take a load off. Now, you've decided that you want to fly by Griffin. It's an excellent choice. I wouldn't fly any other my way. Let me tell you, I wouldn't take anything else. Griffin is great. There are a few little things you need to just bear in mind. Never step to the front of the Griffin. It will eat you. It's a predator. You've got to be respectful of these beasts. You do, you really do. So when dismounting, always dismount from the back. You'll notice there's a little stair just on the back of the saddle. You just climb off of that. Make sure that you keep behind the creature at all times. If its wings are in front of you, you're okay. So bear that in mind when disembarking. Also, don't carry any fresh meat upon your person or in your bags. Try and avoid that. Peanut butter as well. It just gets them going crazy. So keep that in mind. No fresh meat or packed peanut butter in your bags. Again, you shouldn't be in any risk or danger whatsoever. In the event of the beast rotating over 180 degrees so that it tries to get you out of the saddle so that it can swoop down and snatch you out of the sky and disembowel you from 1,000 foot above the ground, don't panic. You'll notice that there's a little seat belt that just clips into place once you're sitting on the saddle, and that doesn't matter what that beastie does, you won't come off. So just do that. Make sure you're not covered in goose grease before you get into the saddle, of course, because then the clipping won't really work so well and you'll slide straight out of that sucker, and you've basically basted yourself for the beastie to consume you with its beak, which again is not a pleasant way to go. In the event of a crash landing, if your beastie is shot down by a ballista bolt or by some suitably high-powered arrow fired by some particularly vindictive kind of creature, such as perhaps an ogre with a particularly good aim, do not worry. Your Griffin is attached with an entire body worth of cushioning, which again, if you remain in the saddle when the impact happens, just adopt the pose that we recommend for anyone who is on a Griffin that is spiraling to the ground. That pose is hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Campaign Creator, where we are refining our campaign. We're refining based on our session 0, and we're going to look at transport particularly because the transportation system that we had envisaged using needs some refurbishment and some refinement, and we're going to be making use of World Anvil's transport template, which is going to help us do just that. So this episode is sponsored by World Anvil, worldanvil.com. It is the ultimate world creation website, and you're going to see it in action today. So go and have a look at it. If you haven't, you can sign up for a free account. Now, we're looking at refining our transport. We're going to look at things like movement. What are the movement restrictions? What are the enhancements? What can we use to make our game better? We're going to be looking at consequences. What are the consequences of having this kind of transport in our campaign world? And we're going to look at what to keep and what to throw away. Now, in the session 0 that we ran with our players, they adored the idea of flying around on mounts. Griffins, Pegasi, hippogriffs, all those kinds of things, giant eagles, all of those were really appealing to them. They liked that idea, so we're going to capitalize on it. The flying ships and things they weren't too keen on. They kind of went, well, it was done before. They want something new. They want something fresh. So we're going to look at how to incorporate those as well. So let's just very quickly go through the blocks that we have here, the points that we have here to discuss. Whoops, too fast. Let me go back again quite quickly. No, it won't go back. I'm going to have to go forward. Right, so well, we're on consequences. We might as well look at consequences. So the consequences of these griffins and things, what are the restrictions, what are the limits, and what are the uses? Those are things we're going to have to keep in our minds when we're going through the template. Now, with uses, we need to limit the uses so that it doesn't become abused by the players. We don't want the players to be able to just move around at their whim. We do want there to be some restriction. We want there to be some limits. If you want to fly your mount needs to be properly fed. So we're going to use the idea of fuel in the case of a hippogriff, or not necessarily a hippogriff, but in the case of a griffin, it is going to be that you need to feed them. Hippogriffs are browsers, supposedly. I don't know what they eat, actually. Clouds? We'll have to figure that one out. Anyway, the idea is that the fuel for the creature, for this particular mode of transportation, is food. Now, oftentimes when we have characters that have animals that move around the planet, we don't necessarily think about how do they get fed. There are feed bags, and there's the magical devices, feed bag of holding, which just holds an infinite amount of grain and the like. So there are workarounds, absolutely. But the restrictions are also going to be on how far the beast can fly before it gets tired. The limits will be on how much it can carry. What are those limits? And obviously with the uses, we're going to need that fuel. So let's carry on and keep or throw. What are we going to keep? What are we going to throw? We're going to look at our old ideas and say, okay, we really like the idea of these griffins being very commonplace and moving around. We're going to add new ones. What we're going to do is we're going to add strata of transportation. So the very simplest thing, a giant eagle, which is perhaps maybe not the most aggressive. You get giant eagle. Then you get hippogriff, which is that sort of mixture type of beast. Then you get a Pegasus, and then on top of the Pegasus you then get the Griffin as the ultimate flyer. Maybe even above that you might get dragon. So we're going to have to look at the different strata. We're going to bring in some new ideas. We're going to update the existing ideas. In the session 0 there was no restrictions on how far those beasts can fly. They could just kind of move all day and all night at a casual speed. Well, we're going to take all of that away. So back to the very front, movement is something that we're going to look at. We're going to look at speed versus story. How far and how fast can they go? We're going to look at cost versus story. How much does it cost to keep some of these things going? How long does that take? And we're going to look at access. So what happens when the characters go into dungeon to these creatures? Where do they vanish? So let's go and have a look now at World Anvil, where I have opened up a template, the transportation template within World Anvil. And I'm going to just quickly add in some details here. So we're going to call this Griffin transportation, right? And the mighty Griffin towers house these magnificent beasts. Griffins are the second most sought after mount in all of the lands, second only to dragons. Griffins are carnivorous. Spelling checker will tell me that. Are carnivorous and require fresh meat daily in order to maintain peak performance. Griffins are noted for their bursts of speed, their keen senses, and unlike other airborne mounts, their ability to attack and defend themselves. Right. Most Griffins can carry up to 2 passengers. What's wrong with my spelling today? Maximum. Well, so I got right click, right? Maximum. Okay, so there's some bits and bobs. Now, there's some odd things in here. We can add a nickname. I think we're just going to call it Gryffindor, Griffinfly, fly with Griffins, fly with Griffins. No, it's just going to be called Griffin. We don't need a motto. They're not manufactured, but they are bred by someone. Now, this is something that I find quite fun, is that we could add in
a manufacturer. Where do Griffins come from? Now remember, something that we wanted to refine about our transport idea was that there were limits, that there were restrictions on that. So that could be interesting. Related character, well, these are all of the cults and things. Lady Jakar might have her own, but we're not going to do that just yet. And the related organization, well, we're not going to add in one just yet there either. What we are going to do is we're going to go to properties. We're going to go to the price. Now, the average price of a horse in a fantasy setting in Dungeons & Dragons, which is the setting that we've chosen, the system we've chosen anyway, the average price of a horse is 75 gold pieces. A horse will get you a fair distance daily and requires fairly minimal upkeep. A war horse up to 250 gold. Elephants, I think, are a little bit above that, 400 gold, somewhere around there. I think, though, a griffin should be a serious investment. So I think we can lodge the price of a cheap griffin at 550 gold pieces. I'm going to put that in there. Now, in terms of rarity, I'm not going to say they're very rare. I'm going to say 1 in 10 mounts is a griffin. Okay, so they're popular, but they're not too popular. Now, the length of the griffin. I would say the length of the griffin, the usable length. So this is the part that you could put cargo on, that you could put a saddle on, and those sort of things. I would say the usable length of a griffin is 6 foot. The beam, which is, oftentimes refers to the width of the ship, although I see that they've got that later on as well. So the length, the beam, I would say, is no more than 3 foot. And the height is irrelevant. The weight is, so I see, sorry, it's not width, it's weight that they've got down here. The height of the griffin is irrelevant. The weight of the griffin, I'm going to put here at 250 pounds. And then there's speed. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, all right, so the speed is, and I can go to the monsters manual. I might have to do that actually. Let me do that quickly. I'm going to go to the monsters manual and just check griffin and the speed of a griffin. Now, it doesn't hurt. We're going to customize these anyway. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that in a little bit. But we're going to go griffin. You can see that I didn't plan this beforehand. Griffin here. Let's see. So they've said here that it's got a flight speed of 80 foot around, which is not bad. 80 feet around is not a bad speed, I suppose. Okay. Let's do that. We're going to say 80 feet around. So flight is 80 foot per round. Okay. In traditional D&D terms. However, that's not going to be useful to us when we're running the game, because we're going to be sitting there going, well, if it's 80 foot around and each round it can dash, so that means it's doing 160 foot around, and there's 10 rounds in a minute, so that means it's doing 1,600 feet in a minute. So in 10 minutes, it's doing 16,000 feet, which when you divide by 3 gets you to, like, it's going at the speed of sound. No, it's not, because it's not going to be doing all of those things. So what we need to do is we need to establish now, and this is something that we were talking about earlier on, the speed in terms of daily travel. I would say that a griffin would be able to fly for about 8 hours a day with cargo. On its own, maybe it could last a little bit longer, but very seldom would it be able to fly for more than 8 hours a day. And I would say in that period of time, if you look at the average human, we can walk 5 or 6 kilometers an hour, give or take, under a sort of a fair load, I suppose. So in 8 hours, that's about 45 to 50 kilometers. In miles, that's about 90 miles. So we want this to be of benefit. So I'm going to say that this griffin can cover, in an 8-hour period, I'm going to say that she can cover 250 miles a day. I don't think that's unreasonable. Is it unreasonable? 50 kilometers, 250 miles is 150 kilometers. Okay, 200 miles a day, 200 miles a day. Let's say 200 miles a day. Now, if you think about that, that's a huge amount of distance that can be covered in a day if it is unencumbered, if it's just flying on its own and it's heading off in its own direction. Now, we can change this around. We can come back. We can play with it. We can tweak it if we really want to. But I think that that is a pretty good value for now. So 250 miles a day is how far you can travel using one of these beasts. Far more efficient than a horse. A horse has got to follow paths and kind of go around obstacles and things. So in 10 hours, a horse might be able to do 100 kilometers if you're lucky. Which is, yeah, it's about, maybe. Crew, complement, 1. Cargo and passenger carrier. So 1 passenger or passenger. What am I listing out here? Passenger, please. 1 passenger, or I would say 200 pounds. I don't think that's unfair. Okay, so that's that. And then power generation. Power generation is meat. The Griffin requires let's say 20 pounds, which is not a lot, 20 pounds of meat a day. Of fresh meat a day, or 40 pounds of hardtack. But we don't want to slow the party down. You know, we don't want them to suddenly go, okay, well, all 200 pounds is just meat. That's crazy. The Griffin can be let loose for 2 hours each day to go and hunt for its own food. It returns after eating. So that allows us to say, right, you're going into the dungeon. The Griffin can fly off and find its own food. It can be completely independent. It can do its own thing. And then it will come back when called. So communication systems and tools. Each Griffin has its own unique brass whistle, which makes its own unique sound. So it has a brass whistle. The brass whistle, when blown, the whistle summons the beast from wherever it might be within 10-mile radius. I know that seems extreme, but we do need to be able to call these things back. And bear in mind that it will take some time to fly back. Propulsion, wings, weapons and armament, see template. Armor and defenses can be equipped with barding to increase armor class, but the barding takes up the weight, the cargo allowance. Okay, sensors, see animal description, animal stat block. Okay, additional and auxiliary systems, it doesn't have any. Hangars and docked vessels, it doesn't have any unless you count its lice. So then we go over here, which is the RPG system datasheet. It says it's highly suggested you attach an RPG block and not use this datasheet. So yes, that is exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to save this article. And then we're going to go, where is it down here? We're going to go to blocks. And we are going to create a new monster block. Very easy. And we're going to call this a Griffin. Griffin. And we're going to call this a Griffin. Actually, we're going to call it a Griffin mount. Because they trained, they're a little bit hand-reared. I'm just looking at the stat blocks here because that's pretty much what I'm going to be filling in here. Its challenge rating, it says here, is a 2, which is absolutely fine. I'm going to leave it as a 2. It is a monstrosity, and it is considered large. Languages spoken, it does not speak any languages. Its alignment is strictly neutral. Description, with the body of a lion and the 4 quarters of a giant eagle, massive eagle wings sprout from its feline body, allowing the beast to sail through the air with grace and ferocity. Okay, fine, there we go. Don't care about the suggested environments. Its basic armor class is 12. Its hit points are 59. And what I like about this is that we can add this in here, where 59 is generated as 7d10 plus 21. Plus 21. Close that bracket off. And then I do a square bracket and I say roll. And then I just copy and paste this so that whenever we come here, and you're going to see how this works later on, whenever we come back here, it will auto-generate that for us. So we're going to punch in some things there. I don't know why it's bringing up names of cities that I've lived in. We're going to go strength of 18, dexterity of 15, constitution of 16, nice healthy beast. And again, we can vary these per mount. We can duplicate these if we want to, for each character to have a different type of mount and the like. And then finally, charisma of 8. I think it's a pretty bird. Flight, ground speed is 30 when it's moving on the ground. Flight, as we've already established, is 80. We don't have any other of those others listed. It can't swim. Its senses, we're going to drop these senses in here. Dark vision of 60 feet. And we've got a passive perception of 15. Okay, great. Skills, the only skill that they've given it here is perception plus 5. I'm going to actually change that and add survival, because that is what these beasts will be doing. Survival. I'm going to put in a survival of plus 8 because this beast flies around hunting and the like. So I'm going to give it a survival of plus 8. Saving throws we don't have to worry about because they'll be drawn directly from its stats. No damage vulnerabilities. Spell casting, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to worry about any of that. Okay, so it does have some actions here. It has keen sight. The Griffin has advantage on wisdom. Perception checks that rely on sight. That's pretty cool. Then we're going to put in a paragraph here because this gets bolded. Is it bold? Bold and italicized. Okay, and then the next paragraph down is multi-attack. The Griffin makes 2 attacks, one with its beak and one with its claws. Okay, paragraph, multi-attack is bold and italicized, and at the end of the paragraph, sorry, special abilities. This goes under special abilities. Boom, boom, boom. Now, you don't have to go into this full detail. I'm going into this full detail because you're going to see how this becomes really useful when we're running our game. Since everything else is in World Anvil, we might as well add this into World Anvil at the same time. So I'm going to do that, and then I just type in here beak, melee weapon attack, and they've kind of got that down there below us. So melee weapon attack, get on, +6 to hit. Now I'm going to come back here and just type in this roll 1d20 +6 so that I can automatically use it just to roll that attack for me without having to use dice since we're already in the program, right? Kind of makes sense. To hit, and that's a reach of 5 foot. Then we've 5 foot, full stop, comma, 1 target, obviously. Hits is for 8 damage, which is 1d 8 plus 4 plus where is it? 4, and of course that is roll 1d8 plus 4. Boom. And close bracket. Okay, 1 target hit. Anything else? Yes, it is piercing damage. Okay, so beak gets bold and italicized, multi-attack. I'm just trying to make it look as cool as I can. And hit gets italicized. Okay, cool. Then copy and paste. And this is now its claw attack. Claw. +6, so that doesn't change. The damage is 11 because it is 2d6 plus 4, and so we'll just update that. 2d6 plus 4, and it is now slashing damage. Right, okay, cool. No reactions, none of that, none of that, none of that. And I don't have a photograph or an image of a griffin, so I'm not going to include that just yet. I'm going to tag it, griffin, mount, air, something like that. Okay, cool. And now we're going to save this. This gives us this block here that it was talking about. So I'm going to take that block, I'm going to copy that block. I'm going to go to my articles where we will see now the Griffin transportation. So we're going to go into edit that. And we're going to come across all the way down here to RPG data. I'm going to paste in that block. I'm going to hit save. And now, with any luck, when we preview, this is a draft, save changes. Okay, cool. And now we should be able to view vehicle. And that brings up all this kind of cool stuff. So here we've got our description. We've got all of our basic stuff on the right behind us. And down here is the stat block. So how many hit points does it actually have? 69 hit points rather than 59. It's a bit more healthy. Give me a strength saving throw. Okay, cool. Give me a constitution saving throw. Give me an attack with the beak. That's a 23 to hit. That hits, doing damage of 7. It attacks with a claw. 16 is a hit, and it does 14 points of damage. So 21 points of damage with its first 2 attacks. And here, multi-attack, the Griffin makes 2 attacks, one with the beak and one with the claws. So we've got this really cool transportation now logged in. We know how far it can fly, speed 80 feet or 200 miles per day, complement of 1, 200-pound passenger capacity. And I think that this really is going to allow us to control all of the aspects of transportation within our world. So when I go back here, we then look at it and say, well, did we look at speed versus story? Yes, we've now got a movement of 200 miles a day. That means that when we look at our narrative we suddenly say, oh, okay, so 200 miles a day, that's not too bad. I can handle 200 miles a day. That allows him to get from here to here to here to here. As a matter of fact, I should be able to now. Let's go here and go there. I'm going to bring this up behind me so you can have a look and see it as well. This is our current front page for Uther's Dragons that we've been working on. So when we're talking 200 miles a day, I'm going to go to this map and look at it and say, right, 200 miles a day. I've pinned some of these major cities. It's just busy loading up the image. It's a huge map. It really is. But when I come down here, my scale is 200 miles per block, per 2 square blocks. So 200 miles means that a Griffin, which is actually pretty damn good, and I wish I had planned this out better, but it's just how it happened, from Pythios to Acumenio is 200 miles, give or take. That's halfway through one block, halfway through another, 1, 2, 3, or 1 and 2, I should say. That's 200 miles. So a Griffin could fly from Acumenio, where you've bought some slaves, to Pythios, where there's magicians and the logic cult, or from Pythios to Pianosinopoly, where in Pianosinopoly, Fortress City guards in the hegemony's southern borders. So Pianosinopoly could get reinforcements from Pythios within a day, and arguably could get from Acumenio as well by Griffin. If we were going from Pythios all the way up to, say, Ulysses, or to Sidon, or to Zolos, you would have to fly 200 miles, which would get you maybe to Cassadal. Maybe Cassadal. I don't think you could make it to Mano. So you'd have to overnight in Cassadal, which is a good thing. And then from Cassadal, in a long flight, you could get to Zolos without a problem. Again, if we look at from Epidox to Cassadal, from Cassadal, it's a long flight, but you can get to Sidon. And then from Sidon to Ulysses, from Ulysses to Abangero, from Abangero to Herculaneum, from Herculaneum to Gypthos without a problem. So it allows us to then very easily move around this map without saying, well, you're going to take a horse, and a horse moves a block a day. So 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to take you 5 days to get from Pyro to Gypthos. With a Griffin, boom, 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 2 days maximum. And you're there, 16 hours. You could do it especially if you picked up new mounts at Malzeki or at Thermus. So yes, transportation refined, redefined. We don't have flying ships anymore in our campaign world because we've got something cooler. We've got Griffins. Now from Definii to Messisio, that's a 200-mile stretch. You could push your mount to land just on the base of Messisio. Just on the base. And you'd be okay. So there we go. That allows us to have a look at that. And you can also see the pins that I've now dropped in. So now we can see every little town as the players move over it. They've all been pinned up and are ready to play. So there we are. Anyway, that's enough from me talking about movement and working out how best to do it. When we redefine things, when we look at things, when we reimagine what we've established based on our Session 0, we find all sorts of amazing things. Until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest of campaign creation.